to do the recording right now, and we should be recording.
Okay, so now that we're recording, we got all the people on the call we need for the moment. We'll call this meeting to order today. Let's first do a roll call, Mike. Who all's on the call? Brett DeBrucker here.
Lila Taylor.
Lila Taylor. Oh, I'll call you out so you can introduce yourself. Lila Taylor.
Yeah, Lila Taylor, cattle producer. Actually, we got some rain yesterday, Brett, so we're much better than probably when you were down here getting yearlings.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Good.
Okay, Jill Stockton.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody. Good morning. And we got some rain too, a whole inch.
Wow.
And last but not least, Sue Brown.
Oh, start my video here. There I am.
There you are.
Now I'm unmuted. This is Sue Brown, Milk and Egg, and we got rain, but not as much as you guys did. But I believe that the Bridger fire might be contained, which makes me happy.
Okay, those are the board members. Mike, who else have we got on the call, please?
All right, so from Helena's staff, we have myself. I won't ask them to introduce themselves. If you've got questions for them, they're here. But I'm on the call, as well as Donna Wilhelm, who will be taking minutes today. Also on the call from the Helena staff is Ethan Wilfor, Brands Administrator, and Abby Williams, our market auditor who works with these issues. So the first time Abby, I think, has had to come to the board when anything, so be kind to her today. From outside of staff on the call, we have Kyle Shobe, the prospective buyer of the Lewistown market, and I believe we have Lyle Allen on as well, the seller for the Lewistown market.
And my wife, Jan, my partner, too, Mike, is on there. Yeah.
There we go. We got video on them, and so that's who we have on right now.
Okay, thank you. And thank you guys all for taking the time today to be on the call. Just want to make clear to everybody on the call, this is not the hearing today. It's just kind of an informational meeting where, in case the buyer and the seller of the Lewistown market have any questions for the board or the department, we can try to answer a few of those. And then the goal here today is also we got to find out, make sure that we've got everything in order as far as the department that is needed from the buyer and the seller, which Mike informs me that we do. And then we need to set up, as a board, we need to decide whether or not we're going to be the hearing officer, if we're going to appoint, get somebody appointed to do that hearing, and when that hearing would be. So with that, the first conversation I think we need to have is a discussion about before we go to that, quickly, do we have any questions or any comments from Kyle or Lyle that we need to hear, remembering this is not the hearing?
One question just popped into my mind, Brett, is if when you set a hearing date and someone is selected as the hearing officer, can it be just one person off your board, or does it need to be more than one? Does it need to be somebody outside of the board?
So we'll decide that here today, Kyle. Good question. The board can decide that the entire board will be the hearings officer. And we have done that in the past, or we can just determine to have the Attorney General's office assign somebody to be the hearings officer. So it's just one person. We've got less potential conflicts to deal with in that regard. Then the hearing would go forward with one of those two things.
Sure. Okay.
Kyle, did you have any questions before we started?
I don't, Brett. Abby and Ethan have been tremendous and very helpful in this. And obviously it's our first time kind of going through this too. So we're trying to do everything that the board's asking of us and that the law is asking of us, and make sure it's a smooth and swift transaction. So I think at this time, I don't have any further questions.
Thanks,
Okay,
Abby,
so-
and we
sorry.
appreciate your help.
We do.
Hey, Brett, this is
Yep.
Lila. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you introduce, since for those of us that may not know everybody, the present owner of the Lewistown market and the prospective owners, please?
Yes, I'm sorry, Lila. I should have made that clear from the get-go. But Lyle and Jan Allen are the current owners of the Lewistown Livestock Auction and the prospective sellers. And then Kyle Shobe, who's been doing a fair amount of auctioneering at the auction, is the prospective buyer.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys have any comments to Lyle or Lila or Kyle? Do you need to introduce yourselves better than that? And then we're going to move on.
I would
Nice to
add,
meet you via video, Lila.
yeah.
I don't know what I did wrong, but it doesn't come up, but that's fine. I just don't know everybody, so thank you.
I included just some history of our history with the market and some other markets around, and it's in the business plan portion of the things that we submitted. I don't know if you'd had a chance to review that, but it gives you a little more background of my experience, not only with Lyle and Jan, but with several other markets around the state.
Thank you. Hey, I have a question then, Brett, for Mike. How come we didn't get a packet of all the information?
Because today is not the hearing. If the board serves as the hearings officer, would get that information. If you decide to use a hearings officer outside of the board, you need to be walled off from that information until it's time for the board to make a decision on it. Quasi-judicial contested case hearing process.
Is that different from what, excuse me, Brett, can I ask, continue?
Yep. Go ahead.
Is that different from what we've done before? Because I think we've always had sort of a heads up about what, that's why I asked the question, who is what? Because I always thought we got something previous to all that.
Not typically at this part of the process. This is the first time we've done it outside of a regular board meeting. Typically we've had the folks come into a regular board meeting in person and introduce themselves and talk through what they're doing, which is kind of what we're doing today in a different sort of environment. And then the packet moved forward after the board established that they were going to move the process forward.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Brett.
Okay. Ethan, why don't you speak to, what do you have everything that you need? Have the buyer and the seller, got everything in order that they need for the department to move forward?
Yes, Mr. Chair, they do. Do you want us to elaborate in some detail?
I don't think we need a bunch of detail. I just want to make sure that everything's in order.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have everything.
Okay. With that, then, the first thing I think the board needs to determine today is whether or not, who's going to serve as the hearings officer, whether it's going to be the board itself and deal with some potential, time conflicts that we all may or may not have, or if we want to appoint a hearings officer, have the Attorney General's office appoint a hearings officer. With that, any of the board members have any comments?
Brad, I'm gonna, I think, make a comment. Because we don't have anything in front of us, and I don't care if we have a hearings officer or not, but I think for the board's sake, we need to, at least for the new board members, make it known that we can still go to the hearing, even though there's a hearings officer. Any board member that wants to go and sit in on the hearing can do that. Anybody can do it, actually.
Thank you, Lila.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, this is Sue. It's my feeling that with the COVID and all that we have going on, and as long as all the paperwork seems to be in order, I think a hearing officer would be a great idea.
Okay. Jill?
Well, I'm new to the process, and going to a hearing in Lewistown is really quite easy for me, right? So I'm fine either way, and of course I know both parties, so you know it. Probably the hearings officer is probably the better way to go at it. Yeah.
I guess from my perspective, I personally I'll do whatever the board wants to do and make it work, whatever we need to do. But I personally would prefer to have the Attorney General office appoint a hearings officer. It's my understanding that the buyer and the seller are, under some sort of time constraints, and so that we don't want to have to deal with a bunch of schedule conflicts and have to deal with that. So I'd just assume we proceeded with the AG's office appointing somebody if the rest of the board is interested in that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Lila again. I'm fine with that. I would ask Mike about if this is trying to get done by October 1st, which I obviously agree with, if we think the hearings officer would be willing to get us a decision by then, because sometimes it doesn't happen as fast as we think maybe.
Yeah, Mike, if you could comment to the process here so everybody understands the timing and what we can do for the calendar.
Yes, certainly. The administrative rule requires that the public hearing have a 10-day notice. And of course, some of you have dealt with this before knows the law prescribes who is to receive that public notice of a hearing. It has been our intent in the past that when we do the hearing, we try to do it in the local area, obviously. So in this case, we would do it in Lewistown, probably at the market itself, if that's a possibility. And if not, we've done it somewhere close by. So with that, I mean, today is we kind of lose today if we're looking forward with the first day of public notice going out tomorrow. Then the 10 days would put us at somewhere around Friday the 18th of September to try and schedule a hearing. I think we could actually schedule the hearing maybe as late as the 21st, which is the following Monday. And we would have to put a little time crunch on our hearings officer to turn it around. But this situation is hopefully not, typically with these market sales that we've seen, have not been quite as extensive, and we don't really get a lot of turnout at the hearings unless this one is different than ones we've had in the past. And it always has the possibility to be so. But that would put us in that week and putting the board back together for a conference call that week of September 21st, or maybe even as late as September 28th, at which date you would make a final decision. So that even gives us 1 or 2 days to play with before the closing date of the 1st, but obviously we would not want to push it too far. So a hearings officer, I mean, given schedules and the need to put together a quorum of the board in Lewistown, and the fact that we probably don't want to do a public hearing by the method that we're doing today, because it would be really hard to do a public hearing in that fashion. I think that's one of the things that makes the hearings officer maybe a little bit better timing wise. But that's the clock that we have in front of us if we can get something moving today.
Okay, I'll just inject here if I can, Brett, in regards to our facility could host a hearing whatever day, whatever time of day that needs to occur. Friday works. We operate on a 4-day week. We're open Monday through Thursday in the office. But Friday is definitely a doable day if we're looking at Friday the 18th, if things can be expedited to that point. So,
Okay.
Brett,
Yes, Jill.
Tuesdays would not work because that's their sale day.
Although we do have one open Tuesday on the 22nd.
Okay.
Okay, so the date sounds like it's fairly open. That it'd probably need to be nailed down between the hearings officer and the buyer and seller. But if I understand it correctly, Mike, so everybody on the board understands, we could with the proper notification hold the hearing as early as September 18th at the earliest, and then following that, a few days after whatever day the hearing ends up being, the hearings officer would then we'd have to get a board meeting, another Zoom conference call, and have a meeting with, like, around the 23rd or 4th, probably, giving the hearings officer a chance to go through the process so that the board could get updated, and then we could approve or disapprove the sale of auction, correct? Does that sound right, Mike, on the dates?
Correct.
Okay. So I think we're all in agreement that we'd prefer to have the AG office appoint a hearings officer. With that, I'd look for a motion to have that done.
I'd so move, this is Lila, that we use a hearings officer.
Okay.
For the,
This is Sue. I second that.
Okay, so we got first and second. Is there any discussion on the floor concerning the motion to have the Attorney's General Office appoint a hearings officer for the sale of the Lewistown livestock auction?
Brett, I have one comment. This is Lila. I see that it says it has to be a minimum of 10 days notice by mail. Do we assume that means email? Mike?
Mike's the professional in that regard. Mike?
Yes, my assumption is that it goes by when we get it out. So if we can get everything in the mail tomorrow, that would be our first day. We just have to send those out 10 days before the hearing. It also will have to be posted in the market tomorrow, which I'm assuming we can get done. And then a lot of our other interested parties list and so forth, we have emails for. But some of those that are prescribed to be by mail will have to be by mail. So, and I will point out here, it's an opportunity to point out that, for example, we have to notify railroad operators in the area. I don't know how applicable that is this day and time, but that is still part of our law.
Wow, that's interesting.
Jill, I think you had a comment?
Well, a question. Would the Attorney General appoint someone on his staff or appoint someone else, for instance, an attorney in Lewistown? And if it is someone else, who pays him?
Mike, you want to comment to that?
Yes, so we'll go to the same people we get our legal counsel from, the Office of Agency Legal Services, and they will appoint one of the rotation of attorneys they have in there. They do these contested case hearings all the time. In the past, we have had Rob Stutz or Kyle Chenoweth, who handles our book of business for the Department of Justice and Agency Legal Services. But typically, we've tried to use a different hearings officer just so the people who are our attorneys to represent the board are able to represent the board. Because of conflict of interest, they can't be the board's attorney and the hearings officer at the same time. And so the rate of pay will be the same as it is when we get legal counsel from them on a regular basis. So that's $106 per hour for the hearings officer, and then I think $50 to $60 an hour for whatever paralegal help they need in putting together the recommendation for the board.
Any other questions or comments about the motion on the floor? Okay, with that, we'll just one at a time. Mike, if you could call out the board member and ask what their vote is, so we've got it, please.
Okay, Jill Stockton,
I'm in favor.
Lila Taylor,
Aye.
Sue Brown,
Aye.
and Brett DeBrucker.
Well, we've got a, I'm in favor of this, but I don't feel like this is a spot where the chair needs to vote. So I'm going to stay out of that. So the motion passes. We know that the date can be held, the date of the hearing can be held as early as September 18th by the sounds of things, Mike. I would assume that the hearings officer that's appointed by the AG's office would get with the department and the buyer and the seller and understand that we'd like to see this expedited as quickly as possible, with the goal of Friday, September 18th, or possibly the latest being Monday, September 21st, if at all possible. So I assume you and Ethan will work with the hearings officer and the buyer and the seller to get that done in a timely fashion. Is there anything else we need to accomplish today?
Brett, I have one more quick question. They want that hearing notice posted at the auction. So I'm assuming Ethan, you or Abby will send us an email that we can print and post that will make that statement. Oh, Ethan must be muted.
Sorry. Yeah, we can do that, or we're gonna have our staff at Lewistown Market run it to you as well.
Okay, either or works. Yeah, we'll get that posted tomorrow, post haste. So
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Is there a notice window for your next scheduled board meeting? I understand the 10-day notice for the hearing, but do you need to have a certain amount of days for notice for the meeting following that?
So our next board meeting is September 16th, so we're going to miss that, but we're going to hold that in person in Helena. Mike will handle the proper, proper notification in that regard for this. I understand your question. I'm assuming that we would get this information back from the hearings officer fairly quickly. They understand the time constraints, and the hope that I would have is that we could set it up so somewhere around September 24th, roughly, we could hold another Zoom meeting with the board and you guys and see what direction it's going to go.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know that we have anything else to accomplish here today, do we, Mike?
No, not unless there's any business that any of the board members on the call want to discuss. I'd make out a point real quick that we're working on some things for the meeting on September 16th. We've had our meeting about RFID tagging rule, and I've got some homework to do for that committee, and Ethan has some homework to do for our brands policy committee, but those things are moving forward as we head towards the meeting on the 16th.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mike and Ethan and Abby. I appreciate it, and the board members. And Kyle and Lyle and Jan, I apologize. I kept not using your name. I know you're on the call, and I know you're probably the 51% partner in the Lewistown auction right now. But anyway, I wanted to make sure you knew I was aware that you're part of this situation. So with that, I think we'll end this meeting here today, knowing that the hearings officer and all the parties will move forward as quickly as they can.
okay, appreciate it. Thank all you guys for your service.
Yeah, appreciate you calling a special meeting for this. It's a busy time of year for everybody. We appreciate your time.
You bet. Everybody have a good day.
Yeah,
Okay.
Brett.
Yes, Joe.
Actually, Mike, could you be on just a minute? I have a question to ask you.
We'll see you all soon.
Yeah, I can stay on a minute, and what I'm going to do is if this meeting is adjourned, Mr. Chair, I'll stop recording because I think now we're just going to be having a conversation. Did I get a head shake there, Brett?